Betrayal is painful, but when it comes from the one you vowed to love forever, it becomes unforgettable. For years, Rasheeda believed she knew every corner of Kirk Frost's life, every secret, every story, every smile. But she was wrong. Very wrong. When Jasmine suddenly walks back into the spotlight holding undeniable proof of Kirk's double life, everything Rasheeda thought she knew begins to crumble. This isn't just another rumor. It's a bombshell that shakes the very foundation of their marriage texts. Photos and hidden truths that turn love into rage and trust into betrayal. As the cameras roll and the cast watches in disbelief, Rasheeda's emotions boil over into an explosive confrontation the world will never forget. This isn't just drama. This is war. And once the truth is out, there's no turning back. For years, Rasheeda and Kirk Frost had been the definition of relationship goals. At least, that's what fans of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta believed. They had built an empire together. Music, fashion, family, fame. Their love story wasn't without bumps, but they had survived public scandals, messy arguments, and betrayals that would have destroyed most couples. On screen, they looked like a power duo, untouchable, unshakable, and unstoppable. But behind the carefully crafted smiles and camera-ready hugs, cracks had already begun to form. Rasheeda had always prided herself on being strong. She had stood by Kirk through storms that could have easily swept her away. Cheating allegations, secret children, broken promises. Every time the world doubted them, she held her head high and fought for her marriage. But deep down, something had changed. The warmth that once defined their home had turned into a cold silence. Conversations were shorter, smiles were forced, and Kirk had become more distant than ever. At first, Rasheeda blamed the pressures of fame. "He's busy," she told herself. "We're just tired." But the signs were too obvious to ignore. Late-night studio sessions that ended well past dawn. Business trips that couldn't be traced. And the way Kirk's phone would always be face down, notifications silenced, locked tighter than Fort Knox. Her intuition, that sharp, unexplainable voice inside every woman whispered that something wasn't right. And it was getting louder. But Rasheeda wasn't the only one who had noticed the shift. Within Atlanta's buzzing hip-hop scene, whispers had started circulating. Jasmine, the name Rasheeda hoped she'd never hear again, was back. Once infamous for her entanglement with Kirk and the chaos that followed, Jasmine had disappeared from the spotlight. Or so everyone thought. But now, she was re-emerging, and she wasn't coming back empty-handed. Behind the scenes, Jasmine had been gathering information. Screenshots, receipts, photos, little pieces of a puzzle that, when put together, told a very different story about Kirk's life. According to people close to her, she had proof that Kirk had been living a double life, one with Rasheeda as the devoted husband and businessman, and another far from the cameras, filled with lies, deception, and forbidden connections. The first real crack in the illusion appeared on a warm Saturday afternoon during filming. The cast had gathered for what was supposed to be a light-hearted event, a casual barbecue hosted by Yandi and Mendeces. Laughter filled the backyard, cameras rolled, and everyone was trying to keep things civil. But then Jasmine arrived. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. And in the corner of the yard, Rasheeda's heart skipped a beat. Jasmine hadn't been invited, but she wasn't there to socialize. She had come with a purpose. "Hey, Rasheeda," Jasmine said calmly, locking eyes with her. "We need to talk." Rasheeda's blood boiled. Memories of betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak came rushing back. Not again, she thought. Not this time. But before she could respond, Jasmine pulled out her phone and held up the screen. The images flashing before Rasheeda's eyes made her stomach twist. It wasn't rumors. It wasn't gossip. It was evidence. Photos of Kirk with another woman, not just one, but several. Messages with affectionate words and secret meeting locations. Financial transfers that made no sense. And one detail that made Rasheeda's knees weak. Proof that Kirk had been supporting someone else. Someone he'd never told her about. The cameras caught every second. Rasheeda's hands trembled as she scrolled through the messages, her breathing sharp and shallow. What is this?" she demanded, her voice trembling between fury and heartbreak. "How long has this been going on?" Jasmine didn't flinch. "Long enough," she replied. "And you deserve to know the truth." The world seemed to slow down. Every conversation around them faded into background noise. All Rasheeda could hear was her heartbeat, loud, heavy, and broken. She looked across the yard and saw Kirk watching, his face pale and unreadable. He knew the storm was coming, and there was no way to stop it. "I stood by you," Rasheeda shouted, her voice cracking. "Through every lie, every humiliation, and this is how you repay me." Tears streamed down her face, but she refused to back down. This wasn't just anger. This was betrayal layered on top of betrayal. Years of trust shattered in a single moment. Kirk tried to speak, but Rasheeda wasn't listening. The cameras followed her as she stormed off, Jasmine's words echoing in her mind. "You deserve to know the truth." But the truth didn't feel like power. It felt like poison. Later that night, Rasheeda sat alone in her room, scrolling through the proof again and again. Each message felt like a stab in the back. Each photo, a piece of her heart breaking all over again. She didn't know whether to scream, cry, or walk away for good. All she knew was that nothing would ever be the same again. And as the night dragged on, one terrifying thought refused to leave her mind. If this is what Jasmine knows, what else is Kirk hiding? The night after Jasmine's bombshell felt like an eternity for Rasheeda. Sleep was impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, those screenshots flashed before her, Kirk's smiling face in a selfie with another woman. The late-night messages that read, "I miss you." And the money transfers that proved this wasn't just a fling. It was a second life. And she had been living in the dark all along. The morning sunlight offered no comfort. It only made the betrayal feel more real. The house that once echoed with laughter and love now felt like a stranger's home. Every photo of her and Kirk smiling on the wall felt like a lie. Every memory, their anniversaries, family vacations, shared dreams, now carried the bitter taste of deception. By noon, Rasheeda's phone was blowing up. Producers, cast members, even fans had caught wind of the drama. The footage of Jasmine dropping the receipts had already gone viral within the production team, and everyone wanted to know one thing. What was Rasheeda going to do? But before she could make any decisions, Kirk walked through the door. He looked exhausted, a mix of guilt, fear, and desperation painted across his face. "Rasheeda," he started, voice low and careful. "We need to talk." She didn't even look up from the kitchen counter. "Talk," she said, her tone dripping with disbelief. "Now, you want to talk?" "Please," Kirk said, stepping closer. "It's not what it looks like." Her laugh was sharp and bitter. "Not what it looks like. Kirk, there are photos. There are messages. There are bank transfers. What part of that am I misunderstanding?" Kirk sighed, running a hand over his face. "It's complicated. Things got messy. But I swear, I never stopped loving you." "Complicated," Rasheeda snapped, slamming her hand on the counter. "You built a whole other life behind my back. You lied to me, to our family, to everyone. You made me look like a fool again." The tension between them was suffocating. Kirk tried to explain, but every excuse sounded emptier than the last. "It didn't mean anything. I was confused. I was going to tell you the same tired lines he had used before." But this time, they didn't work. Rasheeda wasn't the same woman who forgave and forgot. This time, she was done being the victim. "Do you have any idea what this does to me?" she shouted. "To my reputation. To my heart. I stood by you when everyone said I shouldn't. I defended you when people called you a liar. And this is how you repay me." Kirk reached for her hand, but she pulled away. The distance between them had never felt greater. Suddenly, a knock at the door shattered the tense silence. It was Yandi and Carly, two of Rasheeda's closest friends from the show. They had heard everything and came rushing over. Yandi wrapped her arms around Rasheeda without saying a word. No advice, no judgment, just support. "Girl," Carly said, shaking her head. "You don't owe him a damn thing. Everyone's talking," Yandi added softly. "The whole city knows. But you have to focus on you now. Not him, Rasheeda nodded, but her mind was spinning. Part of her wanted to throw Kirk out that very second. Another part of her, the one that still loved him despite everything, didn't know if she could walk away so easily. This was her husband, her business partner, her history, but then she thought of Jasmine's words. You deserve to know the truth. And suddenly, the decision became clearer. I'm done, Rasheeda said firmly. Turning to face Kirk, I don't know if that means divorce or separation or what, but I'm done pretending this is okay. I'm done saving a man who doesn't care about saving me. Kirk's face crumbled. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. For the first time in years, Rasheeda saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Fear. Not fear of losing fame or money. Fear of losing her, but it was too late. Money. Fear of losing her, but it was too late. The next day, the filming schedule resumed, and Rasheeda's confrontation with Kirk was now the main storyline. The producers could smell ratings gold, and they pushed for the couple to meet face-to-face again, this time on camera. Rasheeda wasn't sure she was ready, but part of her wanted the world to hear her side of the story. This wasn't just entertainment. This was her reality. The reunion was brutal. Cameras captured every glare, every cutting word. Kirk tried once again to apologize publicly, but Rasheeda wasn't interested in apologies. She wanted accountability, and she wanted the world to see that she wasn't weak. You've humiliated me for the last time, she said. Her voice steady but sharp. You don't get to break me and still call yourself my husband. The audience watching from behind the scenes erupted in whispers. Kirk sat in silence, his usual confidence gone. And Jasmine. She was watching, too calm, composed, and unapologetic. In her mind, she hadn't caused this mess. She had just exposed it. As filming wrapped, Rasheeda walked off set with her head held high. The pain was still raw, the betrayal still fresh, but something had shifted inside her. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't carrying Kirk's mistakes on her shoulders. This was his mess, and now he had to live with the consequences. But deep down, Rasheeda knew the drama was far from over. The proof Jasmine had shown might have been the first blow, but it probably wasn't the last. Kirk had been hiding too much for too long. And the more secrets that surfaced, more everything she once believed in would fall apart. And this time, Rasheeda wasn't going to wait for the truth to find her. She was going to hunt it down herself. The days following Rasheeda's explosive confrontation felt like living under a storm cloud. Every time she stepped out, paparazzi shouted questions. Blogs dissected every frame of the fight. Social media exploded with hashtags. Hashtag Team RASHEEDA, hashtag Kirk Exposed, hashtag Double Life Drama. Everyone had an opinion, but only Rasheeda knew the truth. This wasn't just TV drama anymore. It was her life, messy, painful, and spiraling beyond her control. But what she didn't realize was that the storm had only just begun. It started with a message, a simple DM from an anonymous account. There's more. Check your email. At first, Rasheeda thought it was another troll trying to capitalize on the chaos. But curiosity got the better of her. She opened her email, and there it was. Dozens of attachments, photos, documents, screenshots of conversations. Proof that Kirk's double life was deeper, darker, and far more calculated than Jasmine had even hinted. The messages revealed that Kirk hadn't just been cheating, he'd been living a separate identity. He had been renting an apartment under a different name. He had credit cards Rasheeda never knew existed. And most shocking of all, he had been financially supporting another woman, not Jasmine, for almost 2 years. The money trail was undeniable, and the emotional betrayal was even worse. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern. Rasheeda's hands shook as she scrolled through the evidence. How long? She whispered to herself. How long has this been going on? Her friend Yandi arrived just in time to see the heartbreak etched on her face. What happened? She asked, sitting beside her. Rasheeda turned the laptop toward her. Yandi's jaw dropped. Oh my God. This is next level. He built a second life, girl. This isn't cheating, this is betrayal with a blueprint. The anger Rasheeda had been holding back surged to the surface. All the years she had supported Kirk's career, all the sacrifices she had made, all the time she had defended him. It all felt like a cruel joke now. And if Kirk thought this was going to stay private, he was dead wrong. By the time the next filming day arrived, Rasheeda was ready for war. The producers, sensing the gravity of the situation, staged a private sit-down between Rasheeda, Kirk, and Jasmine. The goal was closure, but what they got was an explosion. The scene opened with tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Rasheeda sat at one end of the table, arms folded, expression cold and unyielding. Kirk sat across from her, eyes darting nervously. Jasmine was beside him, silent but visibly uncomfortable. The cameras rolled. "Before we start," Rasheeda said calmly, "I want to show you something." She pulled out her laptop and turned the screen toward Kirk. "Recognize any of this?" Kirk's face drained of color. The photos, the bank statements, the messages, they were all staring back at him. He stammered, searching for words. But Rasheeda didn't give him a chance. "You lied to me again," she said, voice shaking with rage. "You didn't just cheat. You built a life without me. You planned it. You hid it. And you thought I'd never find out." "Rasheeda, please," Kirk began, but she slammed her hand on the table. "Don't please me," she shouted. "Do you even understand what you've done? I built a business with you. I built a life with you. And you treated me like an option." The room was silent except for Rasheeda's heavy breathing. Jasmine shifted uncomfortably. "Look," she said quietly, "I came here to tell the truth. I didn't know about all of this either. But you deserve to know everything." The confrontation turned brutal. Kirk admitted to the apartment, to the financial support, and even to meeting this other woman on multiple occasions. He tried to paint it as a mistake, but Rasheeda wasn't buying it. The receipts were too detailed. The lies were too deep. "This isn't a mistake," she said coldly. "This is a choice. And you made it over and over again." The exchange quickly went from accusations to pure emotion. Rasheeda broke down in tears, not out of weakness, but from years of suppressed pain finally bubbling over. Jasmine, despite her own complicated history with Kirk, looked on with sympathy. Even she seemed shaken by the scale of his deception. "Do you know what hurts the most?" Rasheeda asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's not the cheating. It's that you looked me in the eye every single day and lied. And you let me believe we were building something real." Kirk reached across the table, but Rasheeda pulled her hand away. "Don't touch me," she snapped. "You lost that, right?" By the end of the sit-down, it was clear that their marriage was hanging by a thread, if not already over. Rasheeda left the room without another word. Kirk sat there in silence, his empire crumbling around him. Back at home, Rasheeda stared at her reflection in the mirror. For the first time, she didn't recognize the woman looking back. This wasn't the strong, confident Rasheeda who had built brands and broken barriers. This was a woman betrayed, broken, and unsure of what came next. But as she wiped the tears from her eyes, something inside her shifted again, this time from pain to purpose. She wasn't going to let Kirk's lies define her story. She was going to take back control of her life, her narrative, and her power. What Rasheeda didn't know was that the most shocking revelation was still to come, and it would make everything Jasmine revealed look like child's play. The days after Rasheeda confronted Kirk with the full weight of his deception were a blur, a chaotic whirlwind of emotions, headlines, and public scrutiny. Everyone had an opinion about what she should do next. Fans begged her to leave him. Friends urged her to protect herself. Even strangers online flooded her DMs with messages like, "You deserve better," and "Walk away, queen." But for Rasheeda, the decision wasn't that simple. She had built her life with this man. Their businesses were intertwined. Their family was tied together. Walking away wasn't just a breakup, it was a full-scale demolition of everything she had built. And yet staying felt like betrayal to herself. The tension between them was unbearable. They barely spoke. Meals were eaten in silence. Even the air in their home felt heavy, thick with resentment and unspoken words. But it was during one of these silent mornings that everything finally snapped. Rasheeda was in the kitchen, staring blankly at a cup of coffee she hadn't touched when Kirk walked in. He had that look on his face, the same one he always wore when he was about to try and fix things with empty apologies. But this time, Rasheeda wasn't interested. "Rasheeda," he said softly, "we need to talk." She didn't look up. "There's nothing left to talk about." "Yes, there is," he insisted. "I know I messed up. I know I lied. But I still love you. I still want to..." She scoffed, finally meeting his eyes. "There is no us, Kirk. There's you and your lies. You and your secrets. You and your other life. But us. That ended the moment you decided to betray me." Kirk tried to explain himself again, but Rasheeda cut him off. "Stop talking," she said coldly. "Every word out of your mouth just makes it worse." Then, as if the universe itself wanted to twist the knife deeper, Rasheeda's phone buzzed with a notification. It was from a gossip blog, and the headline made her blood run cold. Kirk Frost spotted with mystery woman in Miami days after marriage bombshell. She clicked the link. There he was, her husband, smiling, laughing, and holding hands with a woman who was definitely not her. The photos were from just 48 hours ago. While she had been crying at home, he was partying in Miami like nothing had happened. "Are you kidding me?" she shouted, throwing the phone on the counter. "You're still doing it? After everything that's happened, after you begged me for forgiveness, you're still out there with someone else." Kirk's face turned pale. "It's not what it looks like," he muttered. Rasheeda let out a bitter laugh. "You must think I'm the dumbest woman alive. Do you even hear yourself anymore?" At that moment, something inside her broke. Not like glass shattering, but like chains snapping. The anger she had been holding in erupted into raw power. She wasn't going to cry anymore. She wasn't going to beg for honesty. She was done. "Get out," she said calmly. Kirk blinked. "What?" "You heard me. Get out." Her voice was steady, unwavering. "Pack your things and leave. Because as of right now, you don't live here anymore." For once, Kirk didn't argue. Maybe he knew there was nothing left to say. Maybe he finally realized the damage was irreparable. He turned and walked upstairs silently, and within the hour, he was gone. The silence that followed was deafening, but this time it felt different. It wasn't suffocating. It was freeing. Later that day, Rasheeda met up with Carly, Yandi, and Sierra to talk. They gathered at a cozy Atlanta cafe, far from the cameras and chaos. It was the first time Rasheeda had been out since this scandal exploded. And although her heart was still heavy, there was a spark of strength in her eyes. "Girl," Carly said, shaking her head, "you did the right thing. That man doesn't deserve you." "Honestly," Yandi added, "I'm proud of you. It takes real strength to walk away, especially when the world is watching." Sierra leaned forward. "But you're not done yet. You need to protect your brand, your money, your name. He's not just your husband, he's your business partner. Make sure he doesn't walk away with more than he deserves." Rasheeda nodded. They were right. The fight wasn't over. Now it was about more than just heartbreak. It was about survival. And if Kirk thought she was going to quietly fade into the background, he was dead wrong. In the days that followed, Rasheeda shifted her focus. She called her lawyers. She froze joint accounts. She reviewed contracts and business deals. And with each move, she felt stronger, more in control of her life than she had been in years. But just as she was beginning to rebuild, another shockwave hit. "Jasmine called Rasheeda," she said over the phone, her tone serious. "There's something else you need to know. And it's bad." Rasheeda's stomach twisted. "What now?" "It's about the other woman," Jasmine said. "The one in Miami. She's not just some fling. She's pregnant." The words hit Rasheeda like a freight train. Pregnant. The man who had shattered her trust, who had built a secret life, who had betrayed her again and again, was about to have a child with someone else. Her knees went weak. Her breath caught in her throat. But she refused to cry this time. "Thank you for telling me," she said quietly, before hanging up, and then, as she stood there in silence, one thought echoed in her mind louder than any other. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of a whole new battle. The word pregnant echoed in Rasheeda's mind like a drumbeat that refused to stop. No matter how hard she tried to focus on anything else, it was always there, pulsing beneath every thought. The betrayal was no longer just about lies or infidelity. It had now crossed a line she could never return from. Kirk hadn't just broken their vows. He had built a future without her. The revelation spread quickly. Within hours, gossip blogs exploded with headlines. Kirk Frost to be a father again, but not with Rasheeda. Social media became a battlefield. Supporters rallied behind Rasheeda, praising her strength and resilience. Haters called it karma. And through it all, Rasheeda remained silent, not because she was weak, but because she was planning her next move. She had spent years building a brand with Kirk, and she wasn't about to let his mistakes destroy it. She called a meeting with her legal team the next morning. They went over every contract, every joint asset, every business deal. Slowly but surely, Rasheeda began to separate her empire from Kirk's name. What had once been the Frost brand was now hers alone. But the emotional battle was far more complicated. Late at night, when the cameras were off and the world was quiet, Rasheeda wrestled with conflicting feelings. Part of her still loved Kirk, or at least the version of him she thought was real. But another part of her, the stronger part, knew that love couldn't save something this broken. Trust was gone. Respect was gone. And without those, love was just a memory. One evening, as she sat alone on her patio overlooking the Atlanta skyline, she got a call she didn't expect from Kirk. "Rasheeda," he said softly, his voice trembling in a way she'd never heard before. "I need to talk to you, please." She hesitated, then sighed. "Fine, come over." But this changes nothing. When he arrived, Kirk looked nothing like the confident man she once knew. His eyes were tired, his shoulders slumped. He had lost weight. He looked broken, and for once, Rasheeda didn't feel sorry for him. "I messed up," he said, voice cracking. "I know that doesn't even begin to cover it. But I need you to know I regret everything. Every lie, every secret, I regret it all." "Regret doesn't undo damage," Rasheeda replied coldly. "Regret doesn't erase the pain you caused." "I still love you," he whispered, "and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." She shook her head slowly. "No, Kirk, you had years to make it right. And every time you chose yourself over us, this isn't love anymore. This is a habit, and I'm breaking it." The silence that followed was heavy. Kirk's eyes filled with tears, but Rasheeda felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just closure. "I'm filing for divorce," she said finally. "And I don't want you to contact me unless it's about business or the kids." Kirk opened his mouth to speak, but the words never came. He nodded silently, stood up, and walked out of the house. And just like that, a chapter that had defined so much of Rasheeda's life came to an end. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest Rasheeda had ever endured. But they were also some of the most liberating. She threw herself into her work, launching new projects, expanding her brand, and using her platform to empower other women. She started speaking publicly about betrayal, resilience, and self-worth, not as a victim, but as a survivor. And the public responded. Her fan base grew stronger. Her businesses flourished. And slowly, piece by piece, she rebuilt the life that Kirk had tried to shatter. Months later, at a reunion special for Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta Rasheeda walked on stage to thunderous applause. She looked radiant, not just because of her outfit or makeup, but because of the strength that radiated from within. She was no longer defined by Kirk's mistakes. She was defined by her own power. During the reunion, host Mona Scotchung asked the question everyone wanted answered. "Do you have any regrets, Rasheeda?" Rasheeda smiled. "I regret not loving myself sooner," she said. "I regret staying silent when I should have spoken up. But most of all, I regret believing I needed someone else to complete me because I've learned I was whole all along." The crowd erupted, and Rasheeda's castmates, even those who had once doubted her, stood and clapped. In that moment, she wasn't just a reality star. She was a symbol of strength, resilience, and rebirth. Backstage after the show, Jasmine approached her. "I know we've had our issues," she said quietly, "but I just want you to know, You handled this with more grace than anyone else could have. Rasheeda nodded. Thank you. But this isn't about grace. It's about growth. As she walked away, Rasheeda felt a peace she hadn't felt in years. The pain was still there. Sure, heartbreak leaves scars, but those scars were now a reminder of her journey, not a symbol of her weakness. And somewhere in Atlanta, Kirk watched the reunion on TV, realizing too late what he had lost. But Rasheeda wasn't looking back anymore. Her future was hers, and this time, no one was going to take it from her. Betrayal, lies, secrets. It's a story we've all seen unfold on reality TV, but rarely with the raw intensity, heartbreak, and power that Rasheeda's journey revealed. From the shocking moment Jasmine dropped the proof of Kirk's double life, to the tearful confrontations, explosive revelations, and final goodbye, this wasn't just another chapter of love and hip-hop. Atlanta. This was a story about strength, self-worth, and reclaiming power after the ultimate betrayal. Rasheeda's story reminds us all of one thing. You don't have to stay broken just because someone else shattered you. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing you can do. And sometimes, the end of one chapter is exactly what you need to start writing your own story again. But this is just the beginning. Because in the world of love and hip-hop, secrets don't stay buried for long. New relationships form. Old enemies return. And as alliances shift and betrayals deepen, the drama is far from over. If you're ready to dive deeper into the chaos, the affairs, the power moves, the revenge plots, and the shocking twists, make sure you subscribe. Turn on notifications and stay tuned. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Because in Atlanta, love isn't just a feeling, it's a battlefield. And for Rasheeda, the war has only just begun.